In the last video, I mentioned that there were two big factors that account for most of the differences in median wages between men and women. These two factors include differences in choices of industry, as well as differences in number of hours worked per week. In this video, we'll dive deeper into each of these two factors. And as we go over each factor, think to yourself whether this is a result of sexist culture that unfairly disadvantages women, or whether it's simply an amalgamation of individual choices that have led to disproportionate outcomes among individuals. Hopefully you don't just use the following analysis as simply a way to confirm your existing bias. Let's instead give ourselves two sides to think about. I'm Christine, and this is the Think Report. Okay, so the first factor is industry or occupation selection. It is a fact that women disproportionately select careers in lower paying industries, like healthcare or education, for example, whereas men disproportionately select careers in higher paying industries, like STEM fields, for example. This is obviously not universally true, but just to give you some numbers, women outnumber men in education 3-1, but only represent 13% of licensed engineers. So why would this contribute to a wage gap? Careers in health and education are publicly funded, so that means that they're covered by taxpayers. I've heard the argument that these jobs are undervalued and deserve to be paid more. Really? Should education workers be paid more? As a taxpayer, what would you like to give up to make this happen? Meanwhile, careers in technology are highly scalable, right? They're startups that go public, innovations in a capitalist society. They're, of course, having potential for larger rewards. In addition, education is not exactly a risky field. You're paid reasonably well, you're given benefits, and you have stable job security. Careers in tech, on the other hand, can be very risky. You want to make it big? Okay, you want to start your own company? Sure, invest your life savings, move to the big city. That's pretty tricky. High risks, high potential for rewards. Why does this factor exist? Why are men and women choosing different industries disproportionately? Why do more women choose education? Is it because making a difference is more important to women? Probably not. What about being around young people? Apparently so. In fact, as children are younger, we see fewer and fewer men in education. For example, only 2% of early childhood educators, that's preschool and kindergarten, are men. What about summers off? Does that appeal more so to women? Again, apparently so, and this might be for a few reasons. Yes, mothers bear the brunt of childcare, and so having summers off may absolutely be appealing to them, which is possibly culturally reinforced. But also, women tend to value their leisure time more. And finally, are there cultural influences at play? Are parents telling their sons not to pursue education and instead to pursue engineering? Are parents telling their daughters not to pursue robotics and instead to pursue healthcare? Probably yes. Think about your own parents. If you're a woman, what would your parents have said if you had decided to pursue a career in mining or become an electrical technician? If you're a man, what would your parents have said if you had decided to open your own daycare practice or become a dental hygienist? You see, some cultures have clear gender norms passed down from generation to generation. And cultures with clear gender norms happen to be more likely to value competitiveness and financial success. According to cultural researcher Gert Hofstede, this cultural likelihood is measured on a scale of masculinity versus femininity. Masculine cultures, such as Mexico and Japan, have stricter gender norms and define success as winning or being the best in your field. Feminine cultures such as Sweden and Iceland, on the other hand, have more fluid gender norms and define success as having a good quality of life and enjoying what you do. So how do Canada and the United States rank? Well, according to Hofstede, somewhere in the middle. We're moderately masculine societies. But here's an interesting observation. The top countries that Canada and the United States saw immigration from in 2020 and 2021 include Mexico, China, the Philippines, Nigeria. All four of which have relatively higher masculinity scores. Now, I'm not casting judgment on what is better, masculine societies or feminine societies, but if what you're fighting for is a more feminine society, one that values fluid gender norms and equality, how do we reconcile this with more masculine cultures being added to our melting pot? And by the way, all the while standing against assimilation of any kind. Do you see the issue here? It seems as though we have two competing priorities. Am I the only one noticing this? So to summarize the first factor, women are choosing careers in lower paying industries. Perhaps these choices are culturally influenced, but everything you do is culturally influenced. The coffee you drank this morning, whether or not you spoke to your parents today, the way that you discipline your children, whether or not you have children, all of this is culturally influenced. But ladies, if you want to be a millionaire by the age of 40, don't pursue a career in dental hygiene or childcare. And if you want to be a dental hygienist or a childcare provider, that's good too. And you should enjoy the quality of life that you get from pursuing what you love. Now, for factor number 2, the number of working hours. It is a fact that women work fewer hours than men on average, by approximately 5 hours per week, by the way. There are two parts to this. First, women are more likely than men to have part-time positions. Second, even when in full-time positions, they work fewer hours per week than their male counterparts. Now, one can obviously see why the number of hours worked would result in differences in annual salaries, but why does number of hours worked contribute to an hourly pay gap? Well, working longer hours usually signifies to your superiors a stronger work ethic or a deeper commitment to organizational goals. And this is more likely to result in perceived better performance, pay raises, and promotion opportunities. Now, this might be the fundamental attribution error bias at play here. Of course, just because someone is working longer at your company doesn't mean that they're a better performer overall. Obviously, people have a variety of responsibilities that they're tending to, which could be causing them to put in less face time at the office. But shorter hours can also result in a slower career progression for pragmatic reasons. One simply doesn't accumulate the same level of experience when they're only in the office 3 to 4 days a week. So why is this happening? Why are women working fewer hours than men? Well, there are the more obvious reasons. When a couple chooses to have children, someone with a uterus has to carry the child. This comes with doctor's appointments, hormonal changes, possible physical and mental health risks, all requiring time off. When the child is born, someone needs to care for the baby. In Canada, there are generous parental leave benefits, some of which actually target fathers specifically. But stay-at-home dads represent only about 15% of all stay-at-home parents. Why are women choosing to stay home with their babies instead of the dads? Well, first, there are incentives to stay home. Because in Canada we have generous maternity leave benefits, women are incentivized to stay home and use those benefits. Second, there's a biological component. Women may need time to heal from the ever-increasing likelihood that they'll have a C-section, for example, or they may choose to breastfeed their baby. In addition, usually later on in life, it is true that women will take on more of the caring hours for their growing children, or take on more of the caring hours for their aging parents, or will take on more of the unpaid but important household tasks like housework and family calendar organization. And let's be clear, women are not biologically better at cleaning. However, we need to understand the importance of comparative advantage. If we specialize in a task, it will be done better and more efficiently. This is, of course, how gender norms came to be in the first place, right? You take care of the kids and I'll go build the fire. Or I'll take care of the kids and you can go build the fire, but we shouldn't both do both, right? Because kids and fire. I'm not sure the decisions to specialize in a certain domain of household tasks is a bad thing, right? Unless, of course, it becomes less about personal choice and more about subjugation. And here's something else I found interesting. It's also true that young women aged 18 to 25 work fewer hours than their young male counterparts. A recent study in the International Journal of Environmental Research and Public Health found that while young men seem to have more leisure time on average per day, they enjoy this leisure time less. Women have a more favorable enjoyment view of their leisure time, which may sway their career decisions to valuing fewer work hours. So to summarize the second factor, women are working fewer hours than men, which leads to lower annual salaries, but also lower per hour wages. There are cultural and biological influences at play that influence why women are more likely to stay at home with their children, but there are also personal preferences for more leisure hours as well. And while this creates inequalities in number of hours worked, it could just be intelligent decision making, leading to happier lives overall. Okay, so we've analyzed the two major factors that have the biggest influence on the median hourly wage gap. But there is still that 2% or more genuine real pay gap that remains. One potential reason for this could be personality differences between men and women. This still needs to be researched a little bit. For example, are women asking for pay raises less? Are men more assertive in climbing the corporate ladder? Sheryl Sandberg famously says in her book Lean In that women need to sit at the table, right? In other words, ask for what you want. Be present for those important decisions. Get yourself into that boardroom. But her ideas were recently quickly dismantled by a variety of journalists as well as Michelle Obama. It's not the woman's job to do more. Women can't possibly do more. So this is still a debatable issue. What do you guys think? Another possible reason for this 2% discrepancy could be overt sexual discrimination. There may still be men in positions of power that don't think a woman should be up for a manager job. It's more likely, however, that these men in positions of power are falling prey to the similar to me bias, where they believe that the best candidate for an executive position is simply someone who is similar to them, a man. This sexist discrimination, whether overt or accidental, should be corrected and begs the need for further awareness in this area. So what do you guys think? Are there policies that are meant to bridge the gap, but actually result in a problematic outcome? When the US and Canadian governments suggest a new childcare policy to be rolled out in the coming years, what are the benefits and what are the unintended negative consequences that may arise as a result? If the median wage gap is 15% and the controlled true pay gap is 2%, when should we be satisfied? Must it be 0 and 0? How about 10 and 1? What would that world look like? And would you rather live in that world? Share with me your thoughts and let's continue the conversation. Thanks for thinking with me. Until next time. Fine, be ready to invest your life savings and move to the city. Should I try that out again?
Yes.
Chris, no!